Okay.
A killer buried, but not dead.
Darren, we better turn around. Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
This video is sponsored by BetUS. It has been a rough road for the Philadelphia Eagles this season for all Eagle fans. Will the Eagles rise to the occasion or continue to play down to the competition? If I'm going all in, giving it my all for a Super Bowl, I'm going to bet 500 and get 7,000 back at the end of the year, and we still stay true to the team that we believe in. But will the problems continue? We will find out. Make sure to check out BetUS. Get a 150% deposit bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000 with promotion code YouTube150. I want to thank BetUS for sponsoring this live stream or video, and let's get back to the content. Now, I had to go back and re-edit this video and put this segment in because we were supposed to talk about some other things, which we will later in this video. But the first business here is a release from the Eagles. Devin White has been released. Okay. There's a lot to say about this because I have never seen a player like Devin White that I think we have all been pretty excited about since they signed him early in training camp and the offseason program. And I felt like we were figuring that he was going to revive his career in Philadelphia, that it was a big steal for him to come here, a lackluster linebacker core. And this is obviously before we found out that Zach Baun is probably the best protege for Vic Fangio in this system. And Nakobe Dean was starting to stay healthy and play better. And Jeremiah Trotter Jr. was flashing very good things this offseason. Ben Van Sumeren has had a pretty good offseason program and hasn't really had too much reps into these games. But if you want me to believe that Vic Fangio thought that Devin White was that Nakobe Dean beat out Devin White this entire offseason, it's a bunch of bullshit. Okay, that's number one. Number two, okay, I covered training camp every single day, and there was probably maybe 1 or 2 days that Nakobe Dean started over him at middle linebacker. Okay, the other days, Devin White was there every single time. Now, I don't know what was going on. I mean, there's been some really weird behavior with Devin White, starting with that Tampa Bay game where he literally is sitting home, didn't go to the game, and he's putting videos up on Twitter on social media in general, on Levante David, his former teammate, strip sacking Jalen Hurts and congratulating him for it. And then he erased it. Like, even though you played for that former team, like, he's posting like Hurts getting strip sack. The behavior to me has been really weird with him. I know when he's at the games, he's been a big supporter. He hasn't been showing that he's been disgruntled or he's been, phased out and feeling like he's left out or has been bitching about anything, which is a good thing, so he's being professional about the situation. But I think he was pretty surprised that he never got the starting job and why Nakobe Dean was favored over him so fast. Okay. Devin White could have been a big re-sign candidate for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this could be because Sidney Brown is going to have a roster spot soon. I guess maybe a couple players are coming back, so we'll see what happens. Because sooner or later, Britton Covey's going to be back. Sooner or later, Bradbury's going to be back. So you're going to have to let somebody go if someone gets to this active roster. You can't afford to keep everybody on the final 53. The 53-man roster, who they're going to address on game day, all that stuff. You have some returning players coming in to the picture now. Okay. But I'm not going to say that, the linebacker core is one injury away from, do they need Devin White? Not necessarily, but he's a veteran. He's won a Super Bowl. He's been in the playoffs. He's a vocal leader. He's what you want and everything. And I figured he was the best talent at linebacker on this squad, really, since we acquired him. And the Eagles just added to it. Zach Baun was something that we didn't think was going to, we'll see what he does the rest of the year, but seems like Zach Baun is our best linebacker we have right now. The Nakobe Dean is like hot and cold too many times. One game he'll look great, and another game he'll look god awful. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I think they have a lot of faith in him on how he's going to perform, how he's going to look in his future. Whether he gets a shot this year or not, I'm hoping he does at some point. But I mean, am I shocked over this? No. I mean, I've been saying he's been on the trade block, and if they're just going to cut him, so the information that came out, on Devin White from Jeff McLean says he signed a 1-year, $4 million contract, 3.5 guaranteed. White ended up not playing a single snap for the Eagles. He gets released from before the trade deadline, so he's not subject to waivers. And apparently, he agreed to terms for potential savings for the Eagles. But all in this was a free agent miss. This wasn't a free agent miss. They never gave him a shot. And I really don't understand how Nakobe Dean, the last 2 weeks of training camp, beat him out. I don't get how one guy has started all of training camp the last 2 weeks. What, Devin White just started playing horrible the last 2 weeks, and they decided to start Nakobe Dean? Which, would I rather have the young talent start over a guy that's getting beat out of his job? Sure, that's what we all want. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, I sense there was some type of favoritism in this whole entire thing. I don't know. Maybe they're forcing Nakobe Dean's hand that he really needs to, be on the top of that depth chart for the linebacker core. But I think Jeremiah Trotter Jr. still needs a shot regardless. But this, I don't know. For me, a free agent miss? Hell no. I never started a game this year. How do you know this? Devin White wasn't playing special teams. Ben Van Simmeren was. Trotter Jr. was. All the rest of the linebackers are playing special teams. I don't know. I mean, look, I can't analyze this because, yes, there was some weird behavior from Devin White, not in a negative way, but it just seemed like he just wants to get released so he could just go somewhere else, and watch him go somewhere else and ball out somewhere else on another team. Dying to play. I don't think Devin White was given a fair shot here. I don't know. Was anything said behind the scenes that we don't know about? What was said? Was there an argument? Was there a fight? Did Devin White just say enough is enough? I'm not here to be a backup. I'm here to be the best linebacker. And I know I am. So maybe I need an opportunity somewhere else. I don't get this whole thing. I really don't. I mean, I don't believe from training camp till now that he was the lower player for this position. I don't know. I'm just hoping to God the linebacker core could stay healthy, and maybe the Eagles feel good about Jeremiah Trotter Jr. going forward. Maybe they do. Maybe they said, we're not paying Devin White after this year anyway. We're not re-signing him. Do they like Nakobe Dean a lot more? I didn't really like that last game from Nakobe Dean. I don't think Nakobe Dean fits the system. I think Devin White would have been a nice balance because he can be a downhill guy and he can cover at some point as well. But the coaching has got to, from top to bottom of this defense, the coaching has just got to be right. There's still a lot of weaknesses with this defense, especially on the defensive line, on the edge position. So there's a lot going on for this defense, but I don't know. For me, I'm like I think the Eagles are lying. I think Fangio's lying to everybody. For this guy never to have really a shot I think is complete bullshit, to be honest with you. As much as I want to believe, and I always want Nakobe Dean, I always root for the kid, but at the same time, it's like, I can't believe this news that, Devin White never had, that he lost his job and didn't have a shot and was going to be a depth player the rest of this year. It just made no sense. And I think he just wanted to just go somewhere else and showcase his abilities. And, I don't know. The Eagles probably figured, what? We have young players here that are playing pretty good. And, maybe Fangio made a promise to the front office that he's going to get these linebackers, that these linebackers are going to be top players this year and hopefully do some things. I think we've seen a lot out of Zach Bond. Hopefully he continues. Nakobe Dean, like I said, hot, cold type games, but mostly he's played pretty decent at times. The coverage is still really the big question with him. And Ben Van Simmeren doesn't really get playing time at all. And Jeremiah Trotter Jr., obviously there's a legacy there. Obviously, they feel good about him, I guess, but I don't think he was treated fairly. I think it's a bunch of bullshit to me, and that's how I feel about the Devin White situation. And you guys let me know what you guys think about that situation. That was the breaking news from yesterday. And all right, let's get back to the regular content we were supposed to record before all this happened. So let me know about the Devin White situation. On to the next question. Now we have some news. Obviously, when things start happening in the league, coaches get fired and things do start to happen. We always have to have our antennas up a little bit and kind of read the room a little bit and kind of get some, maybe some ideas throughout the year what could be with the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, it looks like Robert Saleh has been fired from the New York Jets with, I think, a 20-36 record. And this had nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers or the relationship they had together. This was strictly like Robert Saleh went into work and Woody, totally the owner of the organization, fired him on the spot. Like it was a blindside fire, walked out of the door, was escorted by security out of the building. No fight, no nothing happened, was just fired. And this wasn't a group decision by the Jets front office. This was literally strictly the owner and Woody Johnson firing Robert Saleh. And, things do happen like this. So what do we take out of Robert Saleh getting fired? And could the Eagles actually bring him in as an assistant coach to kind of help out this defense? Maybe help out Bryce Huff, for God's sakes. I don't know. But, not too much of a bad idea to bring him in if that's the case. And like I said, I don't think if the Eagles were ever to switch defensive coordinators going into this year, next year, sorry. And to be honest with you guys, like I already hate this defense for the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't like this passive system. We've been trying to run this thing the last few years. And if this really fails this year, I just don't think, I think it's a wasted year as it is with having this defense for another straight year, 4 straight years, going to your 4th straight year, trying to run this defense. Is this Nick Sirianni's idea to run this passive scheme? Is it the front office? Is it both? That's really a big question going into all of this. But I think Robert Saleh has been an excellent coach, especially when he was with the 49ers before he went to the Jets as the head coach. I think he'll go back to a DC and do really well. But as much as I would be the one saying, if we were to change defensive coordinators to a head coach or something like that, and I really think they should hire a defensive-minded coach going forward and getting an OC with full control, I would like Brian Flores more than anything. Look what he's doing there with the Minnesota Vikings. It probably won't last sticking to that coordinator position after this year, depending on how far the Vikings do go and if they could win a championship or, how do they look going forward. So we'll see what happens with that situation. Robert Saleh, reminds me of like another Nick Sirianni that really didn't. I don't know how much Robert was involved with the Jets. Nathaniel Hackett's the offensive coordinator, so Nathaniel Hackett has full control of that offense. They're not even planning on firing him. I forgot who the actual defensive coordinator is over there for the Jets, but I know they are keeping him. He is the interim head coach apparently going forward. But this would be an interesting one for me. I don't know how much of a connection or how much of a relationship the Eagles have with Robert Saleh, but I know with Joe Douglas, the GM, they definitely have a relationship there. But it really wouldn't be a bad idea. I don't know if that's going to help or Vic Fangio deals with how he has this secret thing going on with his own analytics, and nobody knows how he does it. And for me, I feel like a more aggressive scheme should be the approach. Guys, it's really tough for me because I'm already having enough trouble thinking about this offense going forward. I know that the defense will make their adjustments throughout the weeks with the Philadelphia Eagles and Vic Fangio, but let me say this, man, it's too complicated for me, especially when you play your secondary very passively off the line, and then if your defensive line is not getting pressure bad, it's like this whole entire scheme just falls apart. Like I said, why run this scheme if your defensive line is lackluster right now with no edge rushers? And obviously, when you play your corners off the ball so much, or they decide whether they want to give so much cushion to an offense that has 2.2 seconds to throw the football, your defensive line is literally inexcusable. Like they're not even around. You don't even think that they're there. So that's why I hate this scheme for a lot of reasons. Because you could play heavy zone, and you have no pass rush in heavy zone. Big chunk yards are given up, and if you play your corners off the ball way too much, your defensive line literally disappears from the game because of the amount of cushion, and the underneath plays are already there with free yards of 7 to 10 yards, unscathed, untouched. It's very annoying to watch this every week. The Saints game was obviously the best game that they did play. And hopefully this Tampa Bay game for the defense it was just a I don't know, just a once in a while type thing that really should not happen, because not only were they physically not prepared, mentally they weren't even ready for this game that they just played last week before the bye week. So Robert Saleh getting fired. Obviously, this is something we could talk about later on. This is something that could be a next year type of thing, depending how the rest of this year goes for the Philadelphia Eagles, the offense, especially this defense. That they've been running the same scheme since Nick has gotten here, and why are the Eagles so obsessed with this? And who is in charge of keeping this defense around? Like, who is the main factor of we can't change from not having this defense, having this defense not be in the building and not being a part of what we do? Who is obsessively trying to keep this in the building? Because honestly, if it's more than a Nick Sirianni problem to this point, if the front office wants to have a defense like this, I don't understand it. You won a Super Bowl off of more aggressive defense, and I don't get why they don't go back to that. I don't really. It's reminding me of the Chip Kelly days where they favor this scheme over the roster, and they think that they could throw anybody in there, and they think that all the time things are going to be working on all cylinders for it to be a successful scheme. And for me, I just don't think it's going to be there with that. So Robert Saleh has always been a part of a more aggressive scheme for a defense. I think we'll go back to defensive coordinator. Will he look for a side job? Could the Eagles hire him as an assistant to help out, maybe with game planning? I don't know. I could, he runs a different scheme. He's run a different scheme in the past, so this might not make any sense at all. But when a coach gets fired, my ears are open, and I'm always willing to listen to see, what the options could be for Robert Saleh, or if the Eagles feel like, maybe they need to make a change defensively when it comes to the scheme, because I think they're getting rid of the wrong players because of that reason. And it's like you have to change your whole draft process. And I feel like just a lot of that just gets in the way, unfortunately. And that's where we're at this point. Now, other news for the Philadelphia Eagles as of right now is that the practice window is finally open for Sidney Brown. That's coming off the ACL injury, and wide receiver Anais Smith. Okay, the 5th round pick. All right. Sidney Brown, I think, will have his time. He'll practice. It's going to take him a couple weeks, guys. Don't think that he'll be a part of this defense. Just think, you're going to have Sidney Brown back. Cooper DeJean should be starting next week. Bradbury will be back very soon, in probably a few weeks. You're going to have to let go of players. So if Sidney Brown gets back on the active roster, you're going to have to let go of somebody. So we're going to see what happens in the coming weeks with Sidney Brown. Like I said, he hasn't been in full pads. He hasn't hit. He hasn't got physical. He can run and do all these, he's been way ahead of schedule, which is a great thing. He put up something on his Instagram saying that he's back or something like that. Which is great. And, I really like Sidney Brown, another hybrid player for this scheme, for this defense, could play corner, could play safety. I've honestly liked him more as a safety. And, man, Anais Smith was a guy I thought would have been the wide receiver 3 for this team, because I've always thought of him as the open field demon. And for some reason, man, I don't know, he had some things going on. I think he had an injury, and then, he was here throughout most of training camp and literally did nothing. They put him at special teams. He fumbled the ball in a preseason game. He just looked like his mind wasn't in it. So I don't know what's been Anais Smith's really big problem at this point going forward. So I've been a really big fan of Anais Smith since they drafted him, but man, had a really, really bad training camp. So I'm wondering if just something was going on, because his vision was really bad on punt returns, just couldn't really even pan out on special teams. So, ended up getting hurt, was out for a lot of weeks, and there was no reason to put him on the active roster. We had to make room for other guys, unfortunately. That's just the way it goes sometimes, especially at receiver. So you get 2 guys coming back, and you'll have more reinforcements coming back in the coming weeks with Bradbury going forward. So Sidney Brown definitely should be a part of this defense. I'm not saying now, I think in a couple weeks, let him be in full pads. Maybe he'll play a little bit of special teams. We'll see how it goes. We'll see by game day on Sunday at 1:00 when we face the Cleveland Browns what they do with him, if they decide to sit him or they decide to play him if he is ready. Very excited for him to come back. This is a Red Star player, that the Eagles love to death. And I really like his attitude, and I love his coverage. I think he's a very, physical player, fantastic. So I'm excited to get him back and fully in the couple weeks more. This will be his first practice and his first full week of practice in full pads in a long time. Just remember, guys, he got hurt last January, so he got, you know what I mean? But he's been ahead of schedule. He's been doing his thing. And when you're rehabbing so much, you have to get into your football shape. And I think he is I think he is pretty much past that now and really just has to get some of the terminology down and start to really get on the field and start getting some of the work done. And that's really where it's going to matter. So we'll see what happens in the meantime. But at the end of the day, guys, what do you guys think about this defense going forward? Do you have a lot more faith in Fangio being a great coach for the Eagles for the next few years? Or do you think that this scheme is not going to last, that defensive coordinator is not going to last? And do you think in time, due time, they will move to a more aggressive scheme? And do you think that, who do you want as the next defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles if someone was available next season? Or maybe someone coming in like Robert Saleh as an assistant or something like that. We will see what happens. Other than that, you guys have a fantastic day. I'll see you guys on the next one. Shakes what up, follow slide. Peace out, guys. Peace.